What say you, Blue Jays fans? Will we see a Jays-Braves World Series? Jays from the Couch presents Blue Jays Talk for All, so find your seat to enjoy the views on this and other Fekless Wonders from the On Fek Circle. Always available on our YouTube channel, this 30-minute Toronto baseball tour streams live. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, can be followed where you find Jays from the Couch on Facebook and Twitter. My little misadventures are designed to make you laugh, but guaranteed to make you think. The On Fek Circle is just one of our exclusive YouTube channel shows to catch live or with a rain check. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, you should put your Blue Jays colored glasses on to watch Sunny Side of the Dome, hosted by Karen Suter. No one talks Blue Jays baseball with the knowledge and heart that Karen does. Both shows are archived, so if you like what you hear this week, be sure to go back and check out all of our episodes. Binge watching is highly recommended. Our flagship programming streams at you live Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel, the Jays from the Couch Facebook page, and even on Twitter at Jays from Couch. I'm speaking, of course, about the Jays from the Couch radio podcast hosted by senior editor and founder Shaun Doyle. Shaun creates and moderates conversations with Blue Jays players, beat writers, out-of-town experts, and fellow couchers like myself and Karen. And never miss our fake Blue Jays news segments. You can download all 292 episodes anywhere you find finer podcasts. And Blue Jays fans should also make a daily visit to jaysfromthecouch.com for quality Blue Jays coverage and articles no other site can provide. They try, they just can't compare. I am your host, or a worse nightmare, depending on your point of view, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Welcome back for another edition of the On Fek Circle. It's getting close, folks. It's getting close. Pretty much close to a week before first pitch, opening day. Some interesting things to talk about today. I want to talk about expectations, both good and bad, when it comes to this year's Blue Jays teams. We are going to have another Blue Jays bedtime story to close out the episode. This time we're going to talk about how the Blue Jays ended up picking Dunedin as their spring training site. But first, I want to talk about the inaugural Jays from the Couch Fantasy Baseball League on the Yahoo platform. If you go searching for it, you're not going to find it. We ask you to send an email to fecklesswonder@jaysfromthecouch.com. It's another way you can get in touch with me directly. We're down to one opening. We have one opening left, and it has been first come, first serve. A couple of people have dropped, and others have added. We have one spot left. As soon as it fills, the league will close out. Our draft is Saturday, April 2nd at 7:15 Eastern Time. Make sure you check our Twitter feed and our Facebook page. I'm going to be trying to keep up with the draft as I moderate the draft. I'm also going to try to put interesting things that are happening during the draft, comments that come up. It's going to be a blast. It's a great way for us as Blue Jay fans to talk baseball. Of course, we're going to talk Blue Jays baseball, at the core, but talk real baseball. Actually think outside of Rogers Center and outside of the province of Ontario and the AL East. We're going to talk about baseball in general. So again, that's the inaugural Jays from the Couch Fantasy Baseball League that is on the Yahoo platform. Fekless Wonder at jaysfromthecouch.com is the way you can send your request for the final spot. There'll be 14 teams, and if you can't attend the live draft, if you're thinking about it, you could pre-rank your players. You can go by what the Yahoo rankings are. You could even say, you know what? I don't care about who the computer drafts. I just don't want them drafting Giancarlo Stanton or any Yankee or any Dodger or whatever baseball prejudice you might have. You'd be able to do that. So I hope you, if you haven't yet, I hope you do consider doing so. We've been able to recruit a lot of the folks that actually watch not only my show, but Karen's show, and of course the podcast on Mondays to join. We'd love to be able to talk baseball with you, not only here on Jays from the Couch and on our YouTube channel, but also during the initial fantasy league. Something else to just think about, just consider, is if you're a betting man or woman, and people have different feelings about gambling and look at things as gambling or risk taking. Uh, if you're married, you've pretty much pushed all your chips in. You're taking a big risk. Okay, for the rest of your life, you're putting a big risk on there. So maybe trying to get some return on your investment, you might want to think about making a bet on who will win the World Series. And if you're a Blue Jays fan, if you make $100 bet, you can bring back $889. That's pretty good odds. They are the second favorite behind the Los Angeles Dodgers on the one betting line that I did see shared at jaysfromthecouch.com behind the scenes. We don't advocate or are not sponsored by gambling interests, but we always post a lot of interesting stats and stories behind the scenes, and that was the deal. And according to Buster Olney, it's going to be the Blue Jays over the Atlanta Braves in the World Series. If you're going to hedge your bets, you can bet 100 and win $1,260 if you bet on the Braves. And Alex Anthopoulos, Canadian hero, former Blue Jays GM, almost took him to the promised land, but he did take the Braves to the World Series before Shapiro and Atkins have taken the Blue Jays. Just saying. I'm a Blue Jays fan. I just find it interesting. I was very, very happy for Alex Anthopoulos. He's a good GM. A lot of folks have mixed feelings about him. They feel that he set the Blue Jays back by gutting the farm system, even though many of the players that were either signed or drafted, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Danny Jansen, Ryan Barucki, they're still part of the Blue Jays organization. But, I was just fascinated when Buster Olney posted that he was picking the Jays over the Braves. And he's usually pretty accurate, at least as far as getting the teams that he picks as World Series favorites. So I found that interesting. Plus the Vegas line of the Jays at plus 899. I don't see the Braves making it back. Thanks for checking in, Rocket. Rocket is one of our fantasy league players, also, by the way. The National League is going to be an interesting race. I think the Braves, though, are built to withstand the rigors of the years. I don't think they're going to win the NL East, but I think if they get into playoffs, they're going to be dangerous. I mean, personally, I haven't picked a official World Series tandem yet. I'm actually working on the second annual Fek projections, which will be part of the On Fek Circle next week. We're not going to have the state-of-the-art graphics I did last time where I'm holding up pieces of paper for you to read along as I'm doing it. Hopefully we'll be able to put it down along the scroll line, and I'll kind of explain where I got to the ranking of the players and where I think the players would rank. We're going to do the entire, last year we did the American League East. We're going to do the American League as a whole as far as playoff contenders. I'm going to pick it, since it's baseball, I'm going to narrow it down to the 9 most, not obvious per se, but most likely contenders for a playoff spot. Looking at my initial numbers, there's going to be some surprises as far as division winners. Not the AL East. I'm pretty sure the Jays are going to do that, but I basically break it down by position and by manager and coaching staff and some other things, and then assign a numerical thing 9 through 1 as far as the points, and total points is who would be the projected AL pennant winner. The universal DH does make predicting a little more difficult. Um, yes and no. I mean, it had to happen. And thanks again for participating and joining the show, Rocket. The universal DH had to happen. And as old school and as, get off my artificial turf as I am, 90% of the times, I surrender. I liked National League style baseball. And perhaps that is because I have lived pretty much the last 40 years or so in National League cities. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, so I had both. I mean, and literally within my viewing area, I could watch or listen to every day the Red Sox, who I rooted for before the Blue Jays were a thing, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Phillies, with very little static on the radio and a relatively clear picture. Even I could pick up Boston out of Connecticut. So I was really lucky, but I mean, I was an American League guy. And when they had the DH at first, it was an exciting thing. But then, I really got to appreciate National League Baseball. I was You're watching managers like Jim Leland and Whitey Herzog, even Tommy Lasorda, as much as a dope as he was. I mean, he really was a good in-game manager. Um, and I fell in love with the National League game. I liked the double switches. I liked the strategy of, trying to set up your relievers based on what your lineup, what the other opponent's lineup might be as it goes on. But I mean, yeah, it will be a little bit more tricky, I think, Rocket. I do agree. And thanks again for the question and the comment. But I'm really looking forward to the FECU projections. So I promise I will not be holding up pieces of paper like I did last year. It'll be just a conversation. Hopefully, everybody that would be watching will be jumping in and participating. And I wonder if it's the Blue Jays that end up. I mean, I know what my heart says, and I know what my initial reactions are is that the Jays are winning the AL East, and I think they're going at least to the ALCS. But we have the bye now for the top two seeds with the expanded playoffs. That's an advantage where you can set your pitching rotation. You can rest some everyday players that might be banged up or might be a little bit tired. But, momentum is a thing. There's not like weighted momentum or plus momentum or anything like that. It's just momentum. It's just team chemistry. It's how a dugout and a clubhouse is reacting to what's going on around them. So it'll be interesting if the teams that are getting the buys actually stumble out of the gate. Hard to tell. Everyone, having now heard Buster Olney, who's one of the top 3 baseball writers out there. I mean, there's Peter Gammons, there's Buster Olney, there's Ken Rosenthal. Now, I haven't heard from Rosenthal or Gammons yet, but if Buster Olney is coming out there and saying he thinks the Blue Jays are the team to beat, they're going to win the World Series, that carries a lot of credence. So naturally, you're going to feel elated and you're going to say, wow, the Blue Jays are finally getting the respect they deserve. We can get past this Canadian / Blue Jays inferiority complex that a lot of people seem to have. And we can just enjoy the ride. I joked on the podcast last night that, the Blue Jays are not going 161-1 or 160-2. Could they win 100 games? They have the talent. I don't think there's going to be any team in the American League or the National League for that matter that's going to win 100 games. The really bad teams are making some improvements. Even the Orioles, and the Diamondbacks and the Pirates. If the Jays are AL East champs, does that mean you think they'll get that bye? It's going to be based on what their record is, Rocket. So if they have one of the two best records among the division leaders, they're going to get that bye. And then you're going to have the other division winner face the team with the lowest seeded wild card team as far as win losses. I don't believe they get to pick. Now, I could be wrong on that because with all the stuff that was happening with the CBA and the fact that I really wasn't all that keen on expanded playoffs, that didn't stick in my head. And as I get older, things leave my consciousness pretty quickly. So, but I would imagine the Jays will have one of the top two best records in the American League. So from that standpoint, Rocket, I would say yes. Yeah, they would get one of those buys. And I think it would benefit a team like the Blue Jays in two ways. One, it gets them to set the rotation. But really, your first three pitchers by year's end are probably going to be Barrios, Gaussman, and Manoah. And it's going to be up to Charlie Montoyo or the computers that the front office uses to decide, are they going to have a fourth starter? And if that case, is it going to be Kikuchi? Is it going to be a Ryu? Is it going to be one of the younger guys that might, ease their way in? Do they pick up another starter for whatever reason, at the trade deadline or during the season? That's yet to be seen. But really, that would allow you to not only rest Ryu and Kikuchi, who are used to working on a 6-day kind of rotation, it'll allow them to adjust mentally to now performing out of the bullpen. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But I would imagine that I would be surprised if the Blue Jays are not one of the two bye teams to get a bye in the American League bracket of the playoffs. So we're all excited. Only says Blue Jays over the Braves. Almost every Blue Jays site that I know is Blue Jays, Blue Jays, Blue Jays. But there's two things you need to do. One, you need to manage those expectations. But you can't just say, as long as we get in the playoffs, it's okay. Not anymore. Those days are gone for the next at least 3 years, if not beyond that. The Blue Jays need to win the division. It's a tough division. You've got the Rays. You've got the Red Sox. We talked about the Yankees on the podcast with Stacey G, who is the host of Locked On Yankees podcast. She didn't sway my mind in any ways where I think the Yankees are a guarantee for the playoffs. When I do my little FECU projections, it's not going to surprise me if if the Yankees are not one of the teams that I see, the 6 teams that I see making the American League playoffs. But still, the Yankees are the Yankees. They do have money. They're not afraid to spend it when they're really in a race. But just making the playoffs isn't good enough anymore. This isn't 2020. Okay. And I think in a lot of ways, Blue Jay fans kind of let themselves believe, well, we've got it together now here after the Barrios trade and all the things after the All-Star break and going back to Rogers Center. We'll make up that ground. It didn't work out. Making the playoffs is not enough now. Based on the moves and the money spent and the talent in that clubhouse and on that field, you got to win the AL East. You just have to. So Blue Jay fans, don't get complacent and say, we're so good. We can cruise a little bit if we have to. As long as we make the playoffs, it's okay. It's not. The Jays need to win the American League East. They are the favorites of 2/3 of the experts out there saying they're going to win the AL East. I mean, the Rays always surprise. You never know what team they're going to rape and pillage to make themselves better during the course of the season. You know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. But you can't just sit there and say, it's okay. Look, make the playoffs. It's not good enough. I'm sorry. If the Jays don't win the American League East and then do not advance in the playoffs, the season is a failure. And that sounds harsh, but it really is. That's how good this Blue Jays team is. The other thing that I don't want Blue Jay fans to do as far as managing expectations is if we're talking about the word managing, Charlie Montoyo, big year for him. He has done everything that the Jays have asked him to do. As a baseball analyst and Blue Jays fan, I am not enamored of his in-game decision-making, never have been. Now, I haven't used the hashtag Fire Charlie Montoyo since the end of the season, but now they're asking him, okay, look, we need to get over the line. And when I see Charlie Montoyo, I see Rich Renteria. Rich Renteria, great baseball man, unbelievable scout, unbelievable minor league instructor and coach. He was given the young Cubs team to form and develop. And then he was let go before the Cubs went and won the World Series. Then he went across town to the White Sox, was given a young rebuilding team, getting that team confident in their abilities and teaching them what it takes to be a winning Major League Baseball team and player. He was let go before last year, and they brought in Tony La Russa. I'm hoping that's not Charlie's fate. If he's going to get fired, I want it to be because he just did a bad managing job. But he has to win, and the Jays have to advance at least a round in the playoffs. They don't get to the World Series, okay. Disappointment, not a failure. But another managing expectations. We expect Charlie Montoyo to get the job done. But also, there's still an Achilles heel on this team. And I know people are saying, oh, but it's spring training and everybody is, because of the lockout, they're still kind of getting in their groove and trying to perfect their spin rates and getting their breaking balls over. The bullpen is a problem going into the season. The Blue Jays team ERA 5.48. I don't care about that. That's 21st in the majors, by the way. But they've given up 16 home runs, which is tied for 12th, a little bit above middle of the pack. 9 of them have been given up by relief pitchers. 7 of them have been given up by relief pitchers that are expected to play major roles. Tim Meza gave up 2 in a game the other day. Julian Merriweather's given up 2. Ryan Baracki, Anthony Castro, Nate Pearson have all given up homers. Vasquez and Beasley could be playing a role based on how they're using them now. They've each given up a homer at inopportune times. David Phelps got smacked around. Minor league contract, but he's expected to be in the bullpen. So that is a potential concern. I'm not saying don't be excited. I'm not saying don't scrape up $100 somehow and put it on the Blue Jays to win the World Series and reap that benefit of $889. I'm not even going to ask for a kickback commission on it. Use the money well. Buy more Blue Jays gear. Buy World Series, World Championship Blue Jays gears with the $889 you could win. But be careful. Time now for our new feature on the On Fek Circle, which is the Blue Jays bedtime story. And we're going to talk about why it is the Blue Jays selected Dunedin, of all places, back in 1976. If you go to Dunedin now, okay, it's all kind of shopping malls, and 19 is all built up, and the Causeway, Florida 60 coming across the Causeway in there, easy access back and forth. Dunedin was a very quiet, very residential community in 1976. Their stadium, Grant Field, was built in 1930. and had been used, as a little league ballpark, an amateur. The Dunedin High School played there. I want to say it wasn't AAU baseball, but there was some. It might have been Police Athletic League baseball that had a good core traveling team that played at Grant Field. But I mean, it was a Depression era ballpark. The bleachers were rickety and splintery, equal amounts rickety and splintery. When Paul Beeston went down there and took the final look at Grant Field. Not to mention, up until recently, 2020, you had to go 5.5 kilometers to get to the minor league complex. And even then, there were only two fields, two baseball diamonds there, and very limited clubhouse facilities. And you had Grant Field, which needed to go through 3 different upgrades, really, to even get it to the point that it could be redeveloped into this modern state-of-the-art complex that it is. But Beeston, who was the first Blue Jays employee, eventually became team president, was not the first guy that suggested Dunedin. Peter Bavasi, who was the team president and general manager, comes from the long line of Bavasis in Dodger lore. He wanted a town that the Blue Jays could call their own. And he actually heavily leaned on the Montreal Expos and sports writers in Montreal and minority owners in Montreal to give him an idea of what towns were really left. Because all the major towns, again, you're thinking of Florida now, and you have all of these bustling cities, not just Tampa, St. Pete, and Miami and Orlando, Jacksonville, almost all of those areas. Even Orlando was not nearly as developed, certainly as it is now. So they were very limited. By playing on the Gulf Coast, you at least had Dunedin there. You had an existing ballpark, even though it needed serious work over the course of years. They were going to have to put money into it. Bavasi actually thought that the Dunedin Golf Club, which used to be the home course for the PGA, because for 10 years, from the end of the 50s to the mid-60s, Dunedin was the home of the PGA Golf Tour. He even thought having that class golf tour could actually bring people, not only tourists down, but also could bring players, interest players in coming to Toronto at some point with free agency as the team got better after expansion growth. So Dunedin was not necessarily the choice you would make now in 2022, but it did have teams that had Tampa, had the Reds. The Phillies were in Clearwater already, so that rivalry has been going on since the Blue Jays existed. You had 2 teams in St. Petersburg, the Mets and the Cardinals. You had the White Sox in Sarasota. You had the Pirates in Bradenton. So you could make up a spring training schedule pretty easily. Then you could also go 90 minutes to Lakeland, where the Tigers trained, and 2 hours to Winter Haven, which was the Red Sox facility, without really having to go off on smaller state highways. Fort Myers was a haul from Dunedin, still is. You really didn't want to play it around Miami, Palm Beach, things like that. So they settled on Dunedin. And it wasn't a bad choice. It was just kind of a strange choice. It should be noted that there were already a lot of Canadian snowbirds that owned property and owned homes in and around Dunedin. So it's not like it was no man's land. They were trying to attract Canadians down there. There were already a lot of Canadians down there in the area. But the main reason they picked Dunedin, other than Peter Bavasi's ridiculous thought about it being the former home of the PGA, and that a golf course can attract baseball players and tourists, was they really wanted a home to call their own. They didn't want to share Daytona Beach. They really couldn't share Daytona Beach with the Expos. I mean, that facility was barely larger than what Dunedin already existed. The idea of having multiple facilities in other areas just didn't make sense. Yes, there were 2 in St. Petersburg, but that went back 50, 60 years. And Al Lang Field was a major league caliber stadium, probably the finest stadium in the west coast of Florida there at that time. Something to keep in mind is that they almost moved to Palm Beach Gardens to build a joint facility with the Houston Astros. They actually gave their letter of intent in 2013, because their lease was expiring in 2017, to go and try to build a joint facility. Each team would have its own clubhouses and training facilities, and they would share a stadium. Problem is, they needed 100 acres or more of property to have state-of-the-art training and practice facilities for both teams. They only had 85. And the Blue Jays got nervous and thought, wait a minute, the Astros are already sort of entrenched there. They already have facilities there that they can work with. We don't want to go from Dunedin, where we're struggling to expand and get all the facilities in one place, and run into the same problem going all the way across the state, and potentially having Canadian fans that have made it a tradition of coming down to Dunedin for spring training to now have to sell their homes or pick up and go to the other coast. So that's why they only had about 80 acres available. And the Blue Jays wanted an answer quickly, so they backed out. We're out of time. Before I go, there is one interesting note about Grant Field and Dunedin. The highest level professional team that ever used Dunedin and Grant Field, and then the other facilities 5.5 kilometers down the road, before the Blue Jays took over there in 76 and 77, were the Buffalo Bisons. They trained there 1961, 1962, when their first time they were a AAA franchise in baseball. I'm out of time. Thanks for joining us as always. You can get a hold of me at Fekless Wonder on Twitter, Fekless Wonder at jaysfromthecouch.com. You can send your critiques, comments, hate mail there via email. We'll be back again next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you check back on all of the Jays from the Couch programs, whether it be the podcast, Karen's Sunny Side of the Dome, which will be on this Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and On Fek Circles. Shows are all archived. Go back, see what we've been up to, and like Rocket did today, join in the conversations. Thanks for making me part of your baseball week. Remember, it's not just a baseball. For Blue Jay fans, it's a lifestyle. Talk to you next week.